Forum. And let's also welcome in a great lady I got to know during my days in Congress, Phyllis Schlafly, conservative activist, founder of the Eagle Forum, and author of the new book, Who Killed the American Family? Phyllis, we thank you very much for spending some time with us today here on America's Forum.
Well, thanks a lot, JD. And every time I turn on the TV, there's more news about the decline in the percentage of people who are married in this country, but nobody's saying how that happened.
Well, you obviously have written the book. Tell us about what you're calling the death of the American family.
Well, it didn't die automatically. When our country was founded, we were a country of what they call nuclear families, that is, a mom and pop raising their own children in one household. And that kind of an institution is really an economic entity. It's able to support itself and make its decisions. But once you break it up, you bring the government into the picture, and that's what's happened. And that's why our welfare spending has just skyrocketed. Because when a woman is having babies without a husband to be the provider, she looks to Big Brother government to help her out.
Phyllis, good morning. Rick Blackwell here. Boy, you take on everybody in this book. Feminists, lawmakers, psychologists, judges. In the United States, are we seeing the rejection of any sort of moral code? What forces are at work here eroding the American family?
Well, look, certainly the culture is a big part of it. And you turn on the television and see what you're getting on TV. People are putting down and acting like the family isn't important. But there are people who say, oh, we've just got to deal with the fiscal issues and not worry about the moral and social issues. But what are we spending the money on? We're spending the money on people who are not able to support themselves because they have rejected the nuclear family.
Now, Phyllis, during my days in Congress, we tried to make some changes with a Republican majority in terms of the tax code, offering a per-child tax credit, trying to be sensitive to middle-class families. Was that valuable in retrospect?
Well, I don't know that it was, because you didn't make a difference between the families where they were married and where they were not married. And the marriage is supposed to be the voluntary union of a man and a woman to take care of whatever children might come, and children do appear mysteriously in most unions like that. That's just the way it is. And the other thing you did when you were in Congress and passed the so-called welfare reform was to put in a work requirement. And you know, one of the first things Obama did was just to abolish that, just by the stroke of his pen that he brags about. Well, and so there's no penalty. And one of my chapters is on the incentives that are built into the tax code for people to have babies without getting married.
So essentially what has happened, despite some good intentions on the part of some people, essentially as it exists now, despite our efforts for welfare reform, basically the federal government subsidizes the breakdown of the American family.
Yes, it does. And I've got, a lot of people are blaming the gays for everything, and they're not to blame for everything in the world. and I have different chapters on different people, but incentives built into the tax code are one of them. But there are others too, and I particularly blame the family courts. And we have an expression that's come down from English law that the parents are entitled to decide what is in the best interest of the child. That's become a very much used expression. And that used to mean that the parents, the biological parents, were the ones to make those decisions. Well, somehow in the 1970s, the judges took over that. They redefined it. And now it's judges who are deciding what is in the best interest of the child. And they don't have any law or scientific backing, and they're just ruling by the seat of their pants, whatever their preferences are. And the result is just a disaster. But what it means is that the government is making ordinary decisions about what the kid does that ought to be made by the mothers and fathers. We even find there's even some judges who are deciding what church the kid's going to go to, or whether the child is allowed to be homeschooled, or whether he can play baseball or soccer. Well, these are not decisions for a judge to make. It's the parent who ought to decide what is in the best interest of the child.
Phyllis Schlafly joining us. The new book is a contributor in talking about the erosion of the American family. Back in 1964, you supported Barry Goldwater. Your book back then was a choice, not an echo. You have been to the forefront of the conservative movement for 50 years now. And again, supporting Barry Goldwater back in 1964. Is this a partisan issue, the breakdown of the American family? Do you lay a lot of the blame on the left?
Well, I certainly do. And what you find is that the overwhelming majority of single women, especially single women with babies, voted for Obama, and they know that single women are their best and most reliable constituency. So it is a political issue in addition to everything else, but it's also a breakdown of our society, and we're not going to be able to rebuild a decent society unless we rebuild a family.
Phyllis, in about a minute, what can we do to return to the values and the foundations that are family friendly in this country?
Well, I think when you're in any battle, you've got to find out who the enemy is and what the problem is. And that's why I wrote this book, because I don't see anybody else writing about who brought this about. Who is the one responsible? Who's the one who wanted to get rid of the American family? And I set it all out in 6 different chapters. And, it's kind of like Agatha Christie's murder mystery, Murder on the Orient Express. And who committed the crime? Well, it turns out that everybody on the train had a motive. So I identify all the people who've got a motive and who really are working to get rid of the traditional family. And we need to point the finger at them so that we can remedy it.
Phyllis Schlafly, we thank you for your time and some insights on your new book, Who Killed the American Family.
And go on my website, eagleforum.org.
We'll do it.
And all the usual sources for a wonderful book.
Yes, ma'am. Phyllis Schlafly, we thank you so much for your time. Phyllis with a nonfiction book, although she spoke of Agatha Christie and fiction. We very much appreciate Phyllis Schlafly and her remarks. There is more ahead on America's Forum, but we're going to step aside for just a minute as Rick Blackwell offers a Newsmax Now update. So stay with us.
And a very good morning, everyone. Family members of the Dallas Ebola patient say they're trapped in a potentially contaminated home. A cleaning crew was supposed to sanitize the residence, but was turned away because it didn't have the right permits. The latest military intelligence report says ISIS is calling on supporters to slaughter American troops and their families. The U.S. Army is telling them to be very careful about what they post online, amid fears that terrorists could use that information to find them. Hackers launch an attack on JP Morgan and steal personal information from 83 million customers. The breach occurred in July, maybe the largest of its kind. Job numbers are out today. Unemployment drops to a 6-year low. According to the Department of Labor, U.S. employers added nearly 250,000 jobs in September. Of course, the work continues, though, to bring those unemployment numbers down. I'm Rick Blackwell. We've got another update coming your way at the top of the hour.